Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna 55 chainsaw. Customer complaint. Well, it's spelled out right here in this letter. Some of you young guys might not recognize this secret code that he wrote it in, but I can read it pretty easily. He's attached this part to the letter. Do you recognize what that is? So in the letter, it states that the throttle linkage quit working. He took the top cover off and he found the throttle rod laying in there. And he also found that piece that I showed you. So he wants to know, why did the throttle rod come apart? And are these two things related? But we'll dig into that. But first thing I want to point out is that this is an older saw and it's in really nice shape. This gentleman has taken care of this piece of equipment. He's brought it to me clean. He has written out a nice little letter to express his concerns and tell me what he's discovered. And I'm just hoping that this cylinder is clean when we look in here. It'd be a shame if this old saw was scored in any way, but it's not. It looks good. What am I doing here? Well, he was talking about loose screws, and I just wanted to make sure that there was nothing rolling around inside the crankcase. I didn't see any evidence of dings on the top of the piston, but in the past I've seen things go through saws and you could hear them rolling around in there if they didn't make it to the top yet. But we're all good. So let's take this apart a little bit farther and see what we've got going on. There was a single screw holding down this air filter base and then the two screws that run through the carburetor. Your choke linkage and your fuel hose are on one side. But if you look in this picture right here, there's a piece missing. And it's the answer to the first part of the question he had. Why did the throttle linkage come apart? So I'm kind of looking at all of this right now and discovering some of this. And because we're talking about broken screws and loose screws and whatever, I'm taking my time and looking it over. Took the choke linkage off. We're looking at the linkage on the other side of the carb, and sure enough, that piece is the choke shaft, or what's left of it. The screw is still threaded into the end of the choke shaft, but the shaft itself broke. Now, would that broken shaft cause that throttle rod to come off? I'm going to go with a no on this, but I could be wrong. Are the two problems related? I don't know, it's hard to say. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? That screw could have been rolling around in there since the last time he looked under here. Who knows? So let's take a closer look at this carburetor. And what I'm thinking right now is, if I have another carburetor like that, I'll replace that choke shaft. And maybe we'll open this up and see what it looks like, if it needs a kit or not. So this is bucket number 1 of 2 5-gallon buckets that I went through to try and find a matching carburetor for this. And I couldn't find one. I can't believe I don't have another 51 or 55 carburetor in these buckets of goodies, but I didn't. So instead, what we're going to have to do is find a donor saw with a carburetor, which isn't as easy as you'd think it is, because not all 55s are created equal. Bam! Some came with Walbros and some came with Zamas. So I found a donor saw and pulled the the carb off of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if the inside of this thing looks good. If it's not all crusty in there, I'm just going to swap the whole carburetor. I mean, certainly that fuel pump is very stiff and old, but there's no junk inside of here. Carburetor physically looks okay. Now, I really didn't want to have to take this carburetor off that other saw because that was a trade-in, and although it had been sitting around forever, you know, I had plans on fixing it and reselling it. But it seems like a lot of my trade-ins end up turning into donor parts saws. And I guess the bottom line is, as long as you get back your trade-in value, it doesn't really matter if it goes out whole or in parts. So take a look at this side on the metering lever. It's hard to see right here, but we'll take a closer look. You know, in a lot of my videos when I'm showing a carb rebuild, I don't replace the metering lever. If it looks good, I just leave it in there. I mean, it's a piece of steel. If it's not corroded and it's not worn, what's the point? It's already set at the right height. But this one, this is a little bit different. We will take a closer look at it. Let's get this screw out of here and back it out. Looks like we got our carb kit all ready to go. Here's the lever. And here's the needle. Kind of get it out of there. Spring is tipped over a little bit there. I got fumbly fingers today. So there's the new needle. I'm just hitting it with some carb cleaner and cleaning the rubber tip on it. Sometimes they come with a bunch of schmutz on them. So let's get our two metering levers side by side and take a closer look at them. Mr. Fumble Fingers here. I'm trying to get them both in one hand so I can show them to you side by side. Here we go. So the one on the right is the used one. Look at that big divot in there. I mean, how much longer would this thing have run before that wore right through? The one on the left is the new one. So when I see that, any kind of wear in that position on the metering lever, that's when I put the new one in. Otherwise, usually I don't bother. We'll hang the needle on the metering lever, drop it in over the spring. And you know, in the comments section, a lot of times I hear, "Oh, you make it look so easy." Well, watch this, because it ain't always so easy. I'm telling you, today is just a fumble fingers kind of day. So we've totally failed on that attempt. Let's try it again. We'll get that cross shafts lined up in the metering lever. We'll drop it over to spring. And didn't work. Try it one more time here. Fumbling around. Spring popped out of place. Loosen the screw up a little bit. Oh, actually I was tightening it up. There, I did get it. So there, I got it on the third try. So I didn't make it look so easy that time, did I? You know, even if I do multiples of these a day, sometimes it just doesn't always go so great. Here I'm double checking the metering lever height. Look good. So we'll move forward. Now, because this thing's been sitting around, I'm going to take the high and the low jets out of here, and I'm going to blow some carb cleaner through them. Could I have put this in the ultrasonic cleaner? Yeah, in the past I used to, but I try not to put them in there anymore. So what I'm doing is I'm gently counting the turns to seat those jets. And they were both at 1 full turn. And then I backed them out. So now I removed the low speed jet. You can see that it's gone. And I laid it on the bench. Now I'm backing out the high speed jet. And I'm putting it, from my perspective, above the low speed jet on the bench in front of me. The high is on top, the low is on the bottom. I don't have to think about which one goes in which hole. I know a lot of times well, look at that, we're trying to clean a camera lens. I know a lot of times the low speed is longer, L for low and long. It doesn't appear to be the case here. They both look about the same size. So I just lay them in order how they go back on the carb, and that's how I remember it. Low is on the bottom, high is on the top. I just picked up the high, putting it in the high speed hole. And I'll run this all the way down, gently seating it so I don't damage the tip of the needle. And then I'll back it out 1 full turn. And look at that, the carb stand can be used sideways. Who knew it? Nothing about that in the instructions, was there? Or didn't you get any instructions? Maybe just a sticker. All right, our jets are back in place. Let's finish putting this carburetor together. We get the nice Teflon fuel pump. Those are the better ones. And our gasket, and then we'll put the fuel pump cover on here. Single screw to hold it down in place. Nice and snug. Then we'll put down our gasket and our metering diaphragm, and then our metering chamber cover. 4 screws, run that down. Don't have to get carried away, but get them good and snug. And there you go. Hopefully this carburetor will work. You know, I don't remember why that other saw was traded in. So now, putting this together, we have a single fuel line. We'll push that on. Did we like the way that felt? Not really. The fuel line had kind of a memory in it. So we're just going to snip that 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch off the end of that line. And then it pushes on there nice and firm. Now here's our choke lever. We'll attach that to the carburetor. Just hook it right in there on the side. And both the choke lever and that fuel hose go underneath a kind of a notch, right about where my thumb is now. They fit underneath a certain spot there. That's how they're routed. So pay attention to that. So we're pushing the screws through the air filter base and then through the carburetor. Look at this, I got the throttle linkage in the wrong hole. It goes just down in that bottom slot. It doesn't go in that hole. So we push the screws through the carburetor and put the gasket on the screws. And then we're pushing the screws against the face of the intake insulation wall. It's plastic. So if you see me using a power tool to run these in, it's only because I'm very comfortable with this tool and I use it every day. I recommend that if you are not comfortable with your power tool, that you use a hand tool. Because if you strip that block out, you're creating a lot of extra work you didn't really need. So look right here. This diagram shows a bushing that throttle rod goes through. I got it circled in yellow. There's no bushing on here. And I think that bushing broke originally, and that's why that throttle rod was laying in there. I have no other way to explain why it came off to begin with. And it does kind of make perfect sense. If it broke, it got sloppy, maybe the top cover was loose, I don't know. Because I didn't see any other reason for that for it to come off of there. I don't have a bushing. I'll have to get one. I don't think there was one on the other saw. Otherwise, it'd be on there right now. So I'm going to, check the fuel in here and see if this thing starts. And if this does start, then that's all I'm going to have for you on Husqvarna 55 that had some throttle linkage issues. Thanks for watching. Later.